Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unwanted Opinions podcast. Jay and I are back after our long-awaited hiatus. We talked about it a little bit. I think our last show was October 26th, and then, had a lot of things happen. Most of you know I had a baby. Jay moved into my old house. We moved into a new
Ex-wife had a baby,
house.
just to clarify.
What's that?
I said your wife had a baby, just to clarify.
You know what I mean.
People were confused.
I think they understand anatomy. So that's, I was just leaving it to that. But anyways, you get it. So Jay and I are back. We're going to talk some NFL stuff tonight. What are you saying back there?
Don't worry about it. Just keep going.
I got the peanut gallery trying to rudely interrupt this glorious introduction back to the podcast where we've been out for a while. So we apologize, but spit happens, right, Jay?
That's right. Actually, I always say shit happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm quoting the Blair Thumb.
That's a great movie.
I'll spit,
No one
man.
will know what that is.
Not a lot of people will.
Nobody will.
There's a few of them, and they know who they are. Yeah.
The real ones.
All right. But as always, if you like our content, subscribe to the Unwanted Opinions podcast wherever you find us. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can email us, unwantedopinionspodcast@gmail.com. Many ways to get in touch with us. Rate, review. Also, when you hit that subscribe button, that helps Jay and I out a ton. Questions, comments, anything. You can get a hold of us, and we're back. So get after us.
I'm pleasantly surprised how you nailed that. I was wondering, it's been over a month, if you remember everything, if you remember the email.
Jay, I'm a steel trap.
Yeah,
man.
I feel that. I would not have done that well.
That's where our memories differ a ton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like bread and butter. As soon as we had a little bit of technical difficulties before we started, I had to remember which cord was plugged into what, but that happens. So
Steel trap.
Yeah. Hey, I eventually remembered because you saw the light bulb kick in.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, what we're going to do tonight is, since we left off and 5 weeks of the NFL season has happened, I believe, and
yeah, a lot's happened.
A lot has happened, honestly, since Jay and I last talked. So what we're going to do is run through every division, and we're going to give quick thoughts on every team, where they stand currently, if they're a playoff team, if we think they can make the Super Bowl, if they're a team that's rebuilding, if they're a team that's in complete and utter fucking chaos. We'll at least give 3 words on them. So
yeah, we're not going to go back to like 75 games that we've missed so far.
No, definitely not.
We'll just go over what we should have a pretty clear understanding of what we believe these teams are at this point, this late in the season.
Absolutely.
Where would you like to start?
Gee, let's just start in our backyard, man. Let's start with the AFC South.
All right, AFC South. Titans are on top of the division at 8-4.
Yes.
What do you think about the Titans?
It's hard to root for a team root for a team in your own division. I don't root for them, but it's hard to hate them because I like Mike Vrabel so much, and I've always been a fan of Ryan Tannehill. But the Titans are built a specific way. And I think you saw that a lot against Cleveland. If their run game was not working, their defense is not in a position to keep them in games because their defense is a problem. Their defense gives up a lot of big plays in the pass game. They have absolutely no pass rush. Their 2 offseason signings in Vic Beasley and Jadeveon Clowney are Clowney went on IR and is done for the year. They just straight up cut Vic Beasley after paying him like $13 million this offseason. So I think the Titans are a good playoff team, but I don't see them as a Super Bowl caliber team with that bad of a defense.
I agree with you. I think they could be a scary team like they were last year in the playoffs, where not a lot of teams want to play them because of the way they're built. You alluded to it earlier. They run the ball. The problem is, like you said, they don't play good defense. That's the Achilles heel of this team. It's going to be in the playoffs. I don't see them doing much damage come playoff time, but as of now, they do stack up. They're first in the AFC South. Same record as the Colts. I know before the season you picked the Titans to win the division. I picked the Colts to win the division. Right now, like I just said, they have the same record, and they have, 4 games left on the schedule?
Yes.
Do you still think the Titans win the division? And if so, about what record?
Yeah, it's going to be close because the Colts have, Houston left. They have the Raiders, the Steelers, and the
Pittsburgh.
Jaguars. So they've got – I actually don't know who's on Tennessee's schedule, but if they both go 2-2 down the stretch, the Titans will win the tiebreaker. So I think that's probably the most realistic option for both. Probably finish at 10-6, and the Titans end up stealing the division from the Colts. That's my guess for those two teams.
I would actually guess that I will change. I believe the Titans probably win this division pretty much for what you just said.
Yeah.
If they finish with the same record, the Colts definitely have to have the better record in order to win the division.
Yeah.
So basically, they got to go probably 3-1 or possibly even 4-0 down the stretch to win this division, because the Titans have the better division record right now, and they have the better conference record. So unless the Colts just end with a better record, Titans should wrap this thing up. I'll take the Titans to win the division. Colts, I want to know your thoughts on Phillip Rivers, because I was on him the entire offseason. He played a little slow coming out of the gate for sure, to where it made me actually back off a little and just think like, okay, is he washed up? Is this what we've been seeing the past couple of years in LA? And since then, I've kind of backed off of that. I believe Phillip Rivers is playing pretty well for a 40-year-old quarterback, especially on a new team. I really do think it took him a little while to get acclimated with the team. But like I've told you before recently, not on the podcast or anything, that the Colts, the last couple losses they've had, I'm not putting on Rivers. I think he's actually played pretty well.
And I would agree with that.
And I like where he's taken this team. A 7 seed is going to be very difficult for them to do anything in the playoffs, because they're going to be matched up against a Kansas City or a Pittsburgh, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah. And I mean, like I told you from the offseason, no, I didn't love the signing of Phillip Rivers, but I was never going to root against my team. I was always going to root for them to do well. I just didn't have my sights set on a Super Bowl, because I truly believe that the Colts, with a good quarterback, if we had Andrew Luck, I truly believe they would be in the hunt to actually legitimately make the Super Bowl, because their roster is so good. That's why I think I was so bummed out about it. But, I mean, I can't fault him for 2 of the games, Cleveland and Jacksonville. He for sure cost the Colts those 2 games. You can solely blame those on him. But the other 2, I'm with you. You can't blame him for the Ravens game, because, first of all, that Ravens game was just horribly officiated. And the Titans game, I mean, it was just a putrid performance by the Colts defense. I know we had guys on the COVID list and everything, but it was just absolutely disgusting what they allowed the Titans to do in the first half. I mean, but I thought he played really well against Green Bay, who came in at 7-2 to Indy
they
a couple weeks ago. I mean, and they're talked about as one of the best teams in the league, the Packers are, and I thought Phillip played really well against them. So I'll get my hats off to Phillip Rivers. I thought he's played better than I expected. I think the Colts are in similar situations to the Titans. I think the Colts are a team that people won't, maybe not necessarily want to play, but aren't like scared once they walk through their door, because I think they feel like they are beatable, because Phillip Rivers can have one of those games where he does turn the ball over a couple times, especially older quarterback that can't really move that well in the cold, like you mentioned, out of Kansas City, out of Pittsburgh. That scares me about the Colts offense.
Quick shout out. Yeah, their defenses play. If you take away the last couple first halves, their defenses play pretty damn well all year. So
yes.
Surprisingly,
they're one of the top 5 defenses in the league. I don't think that's a question.
And I do think DeForest Buckner should be looked at and given at least a chance to win Defensive Player of the Year, because you saw what happened last game when he didn't play, just how easily the Titans moved up and down the field on them, where you go back to the first time they played earlier on in the season and it was a whole different ball game.
Yes,
so
it was.
DeForest Buckner should be considered for Defensive Player of the Year. I'm not saying I would give it to him, but I hope his name comes up, because
Julian
that was
Blackman
great fun.
For Defensive Rookie of the Year, too.
Another good
Put some
steal
respect
by
on
Chris
that dude's
Ballard.
name. Yes.
The last 2 teams in the division, actually, ever since Bill O'Brien got canned from Houston, they've looked like a better team to me. And
they have, but you also got to look at who they've played.
Agreed.
They haven't played good
1,000%.
teams.
I'm nowhere near saying they're a good team just yet, but I do think at this point in the season they got off to such a bad start that I would say they're better than the average 4-8 team.
I would agree with
in
that.
the league.
Just
and a
because
lot of
based
that's
off
because
of some of the talent that they have on their roster.
Well, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
I just watched him against the Colts where this past Sunday, so yesterday. I mean, it seemed like 4 or 5 times the Colts had him on a blitz in the backfield. He gets out of 2 or 3 sack opportunities and just finds an open guy downfield, because you're banking that when you bring that pressure, that he's going to the ground or he's going to have to
Definitely.
get the ball out fast. Well, when he escapes all these guys, it makes a play downfield. Someone's open.
Yeah.
And that's great that the cookie crumbles. And he played, to me, phenomenal. And I saw stats on him coming into this game where, like, the past, I don't even know how many games, 6 or 7 games, he had thrown like 15 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah, he had like 237 streak of passes attempted without an interception. I think it was since
And
week
that kind of says a lot
5.
when his offensive line is trash. He has no run game, and his best wide receiver was Will Fuller.
Yeah, and they just let Kenny Stills walk because he wanted to go play for somebody that could actually win, and they let him. I really don't have much to say on Houston, but honestly, this is something I expected them to do this year because I hated their roster, I hated their GM. They are in hell right now, and I don't.
Yeah,
and
they're
they're not going to get
cap
out of it
hell,
for
they're
a couple weeks or a couple
Draft
years.
hell. They
Yeah.
don't really have. I can't tell you to be excited if you're a Houston fan because
No, they're
you're
stuck
paying
in, they're
Deshaun
stuck
Watson.
in
You
this
can't
for
pay
at least
anyone
2
else.
to 3 years. They are.
Yep, and you can't draft anyone else either. So
Yeah.
this sucks for Houston. Jacksonville, I'll give you what they play hard every week. It seems like even though they're 1-11, they play a lot of close games, but they just don't have a talent on the roster. Yeah, I'm not really sure where we just had a little bit of technical difficulties,
Yeah,
but
but
it's our
we're all right.
first
Yeah.
day back. So
Jacksonville
I, don't-
sucks.
I know I was talking about Jacksonville. I don't know what you heard, but bottom line, I do think they actually play hard for Doug Marrone. He should be fired after this year because he's had plenty of chances, but they just don't have that much talent on the team.
No, and I mean they did just fire Dave Caldwell, their GM. Yeah, like you said, they play hard, but that's just because I feel like a lot of it is they have a lot of guys who are still trying to make the roster or at least other rosters, so you get their best every single week. And once guys are paid, you don't always get that every single week. I know that sucks to say, but it's just the reality of it. So that's where Jacksonville is, and they're going to be there for a while until they get a quarterback and get with the times. I mean, Doug Marrone, he's not today's type of coach. He's like a offensive line coach or something. I mean, he needs to be a coordinator of some sort.
Yep. AFC North, Pittsburgh, 11-0 right now. Haven't been beaten. They've been battle tested. What do you think? Because coming into the year, we both picked the Steelers if Big Ben stayed healthy as a sleeper Super Bowl team.
You remember
still feel
I said Pittsburgh was the team I think was going to challenge Kansas City the most in the AFC, and up to this point, I see no reason to get off that. I know they've had some injuries with their defense and 2 pretty big ones in Bud Dupree and Devin Bush, but they still have a lot of studs on that defense. And I think Big Ben, he's had a few struggles this year, but I think he's getting stronger as the year is going on because you saw that Wednesday shit game that they played against Baltimore. I think his receivers dropped about 8 touchdowns in that game, so they should have won by more than 5, but I like what I've seen from Pittsburgh so far, and I think they're a legit chance to get out of the AFC to go to the Super Bowl.
Agreed. I think they're extremely well coached. I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the NFL. They have weapons on offense. Big Ben's been there, done that. They got guys on defense that make plays all over the field. Like Minka Fitzpatrick just rejuvenated his career in Pittsburgh.
T.J.
Watt
is
one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Cam Hayward on the defensive line has played lights out this year. So they got guys at every level. So, yeah, even though they did lose a Bud Dupree and a Devin Bush, they still got guys that make that defense a top 10 defense even without them. So Pittsburgh's no slouch and clearly at 11-0. But and the way Kansas City's been playing as of late, which I know we can get to them in the next division. But Pittsburgh, you could claim as the best team in the NFL right now. I know even though they're 11-0 and Kansas City's 11-1, Kansas City's still probably looked at as the best team. But
I think the Saints would like to throw their hat in that ring too.
Agreed. I'm a Saints fan, and this year. So, but Pittsburgh, watch out. They could make it to the Super Bowl very easily.
Is that Saints fan dumb a little have to do with those the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yes, we will.
Cleveland is next at 9 in that division. Not surprising talent-wise, but just surprising because it's been so long that they've been this good. And it's awesome to watch.
It clinches their first non-losing season since 2007, I believe, when they were 10-6.
Yep, and I think it's the first time, the first time that they've made the playoffs since 2003.
Well, they haven't officially clinched a playoff spot.
That's what I'm saying. If they make it, which
Okay.
I mean, even if they lose out, they'd be 9-7. There's still a shot they'd
They
get
look
in.
like
So,
they're on track to make the playoffs. So, okay, I guess I get what you're saying.
and I think I read that if they do make the playoffs, it'd be the first time since 2003. Don't quote
That
me, but
sounds
I
about
believe
right.
that's
It's
correct.
probably 02 or 03. It's definitely the early part of the decade. That's for sure, or the century, I should say, not decade.
Yeah, Baker came out firing in the last game, 4
Yeah,
touchdowns in the
man.
first half. They've had the talent
How
all
about
along.
Kevin Stefanski
Oh, he should be considered, if not win the award for
for
Coach of
Coach
the
of
Year,
the
in my
Year?
opinion.
Hats off to that guy. I mean, what he did. I think we both believed that the Browns would be improved. I didn't see this
I didn't
already,
either.
but you saw what he was able to do in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins and how he really shaped that offense towards a run, run, run. We're really going off play action. Baker, do not try and use your legs because you are not an athletic quarterback in the NFL. You are an athletic quarterback in the Big 12, which is much different. And I think Baker, to his credit, has stayed in his lane a lot of the time. And I actually think he's played pretty well this year. You actually heard, I think, and I can't stand the guy, Chris Collinsworth, but he talked about how their passing numbers for the Browns had been down for the past couple weeks, but they played in such shitty weather in Cleveland. I mean, where it's windy, it's like sleeting. So no, you're not going to throw the ball a lot. So I think everybody was surprised when Baker throws for almost 350 yards against Tennessee. But I mean, they're a run first team, and that defense, when Myles Garrett's back, now he's off the COVID list. I mean, he's basically unblockable.
Now, what do you think playoff time? Do you think they're willing or able to do anything in the playoffs?
No, they're probably a one and done playoff team.
I agree.
They
And
have
you
no
want to know
experience.
why?
They've never
Because
been there. They've never done that. So I think they need some scars because a lot of the guys on their team have been hyped up their entire life. If you know what I mean. They've never
For sure.
felt much failure. So I think they need that experience.
You want to know the stat that just boggles my mind that I believe transfers universally throughout the NFL and why I believe they will not win a playoff game?
Hit me.
They are 9-3. They've won 75% of their games, and their point differential is -15.
That's really bad.
Yeah, that if you were to just put that, I mean, if you were to just show somebody points for, points against, and the net point differential, and it come out to be -15, I don't think anybody in any realm of possibility would think that a -15 point differential team would be 9-3.
That's awful. Honestly.
What that tells me is they've blown out a few teams and
been
then played a
blown out
lot
few
of close
times.
games.
Yeah.
And then, yes, also been blown out. So I don't know. -15 through 12 weeks and sitting at 9-3. I feel like they've won some games that maybe they should have lost. And the team sees the record and they might be drinking the Kool-Aid, not realizing that they have some underlying problems. But possibly with Stefanski, it might be different because I did hear Jarvis go on a podcast and say how much different it is with him and how much of an X's and O's guy he is.
Oh
and
yeah,
how
I mean they had that idiot in there in Freddie Kitchens last year.
Yeah. So maybe it's different, but that stat right there blew my mind. I was like, I don't know if I can get past that.
Yeah, I actually didn't
Ravens,
know that, but I'm with it.
Ravens sitting at 6-5, third in the division. I think everybody believed Baltimore would get second or first in the division, not third, but they've kind of taken a step backwards. They did it.
And I don't want to say that teams have figured out the Ravens, but I feel like I kind of want to because you even heard Lamar Jackson earlier this year say that defenses know what plays are coming from the Ravens offense. And that is very telling. And I mean, after Lamar's magical 2019 season, I don't think he progressed as a passer this year. I actually think he regressed as a passer. I mean, and you can just look at the numbers. And I just think you can look at when you watch some of their games, just the accuracy isn't the same as it was last year from Lamar. And I don't know if that's has a lot to do with him, how he was just so out to prove everybody wrong last year that he just thought he could get by with not improving his game and just build off of just try and do the exact same thing as last year because it's clear that the same exact thing is not working.
No, it's not. They show flashes. They've been hit with some COVID problems as of recently, and I do believe that they could get up early on a team in the playoffs, and it'd be hard to beat them with that run game that they have. But the problem is they're the type of team, and we've said it before, that if somebody jumps out on them early come playoff time, they're probably not going to win that game because
You've
they are
seen it a
not built
couple
to play
times
from
this year
behind.
with them.
Yeah.
Especially against Kansas City. When Kansas City jumped them early, they had no shot.
And
They
there's
just
actually
don't.
a good chance that they don't even make the playoffs, sitting
Yeah.
at 6-5 right now.
Yeah. After being 14-2 last year.
So
Yeah.
they gotta figure some stuff out and try and run some different plays in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Cincinnati 2-9 or 2-9-1, I guess. They weren't going to win very many games with Joe Burrow, but you saw signs of just how good he is.
It just
and will
really
be.
sucked that he did that to his knee.
I
because
agree.
I actually you just like watching him play, and the development would have been really good for him to just get this experience this year. It really would have, to build some chemistry with some of those receivers that he's got.
Which I think he did, but it definitely would have been more beneficial to play the whole year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But honestly, that's all I have to say about Cincinnati.
What do you think about the head coach? Should he get another year?
I think he should get another opportunity.
I think so too.
I think they still need to upgrade the offensive line and the defense, and they'll have another draft to do that. I liked their draft this past year. They really just have to build, and that's what they're going to have to do. So I think Zach Taylor does deserve another shot.
I would at least give him one more year.
I agree with that.
You want to go AFC West or AFC East?
Let's go the West first.
Okay, Kansas City sitting at 11-1 right now.
Pretty damn good.
Barely squeaked out a win against Denver. They've had like 4 straight games where it was 6 points or fewer. I think I heard this morning, which is kind of surprising with the way this team's built and all the weapons they have. I don't know what to read into that, but I mean, they're pretty good, and they're still my pick to win the whole thing again.
Yeah, I really don't see anybody beating this team, because it's almost they're a team that I feel like plays down to their competition a lot because they know how good they are. Because when they played Tampa a couple weeks ago, they were absolutely murdering the Buccaneers. And then I feel like they got very conservative on offense. It looked like Andy Reid was trying to pull out every trick play he had ever dreamt of in that game, where they just weren't doing what they should have to actually just, because Mahomes had like 400 yards in the first half. And then in the second half, they just barely just did anything. And last night against Denver, again, it was a game where they just didn't feel like they were in it all the way, because they thought they just had it. They just walked through the tunnel knowing they were the more talented team. And I feel like they do that. And that may come back to bite them in the ass in the playoffs. But I just feel like they'll be ready come playoff time and take it a little more seriously.
Yeah, I agree. And like I kind of just mentioned, I still have them winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're the best team in the
good.
league. I do. I know they're 11-1, and the Raiders got them on a game that they slipped up.
So you want to know what's wild to me?
Yes, I
Let's
do.
say, okay, so the Chiefs' remaining schedule is Dolphins, Saints, Falcons, Chargers. I'm not going to call the Dolphins an easy win, but they should beat the Dolphins. They're a better team. They have the better quarterback. They're just in a better situation. I would assume they're going to beat the Dolphins. Then they go to the Saints. Let's just say they lose that game. Realistic, they could lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then they finish with the Falcons and the Chargers, who at that point, neither one will really be playing for anything. They should win both of those games. So let's say they finish 14-2.
Okay.
Let's say the Steelers lose 2 out of the last 4 games, which I doubt happens. I actually think they're going to finish around 15-1 or maybe even 16-0. But let's say they lose one of their last games or even 2 of their last games. So they both finish 14-2 or 15-1. One of those teams isn't going to get a bye.
I know.
How insane is it that you go 14-2 or 15-1 and you have to play the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, that's just the sucker reality of the new change to get another team into the playoffs. But I mean, I don't know what to say other than that. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. It sucks, but you just got to live with it. You just got to win one extra game is the way you got to look at it.
Yep.
So
the Raiders, they've surprised me really.
Offensively, they've surprised me. I still think their defense sucks.
Well, does that surprise you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, they've
They
pretty
got
much
so
shown
lucky
you
yesterday against the Jets, man. They
What do
should
you
have
think
never,
about
it
that
should have
last
never
play of
been
the
that
game?
close with the Jets. That's honestly kind of embarrassing that happens. That
What
they
do you
had
think
to
about that
win
last
on
play of the game?
a Hail
Greg
Mary.
Williams calls cover 0 all out blitz.
Yeah. Who does that?
I don't know. I heard Darius Butler, former DB in
And he
the
just got
NFL, on a
fired
podcast,
today.
got on there and was like, if that ever happened, we would have immediately checked out of it and said, there's no damn way we're running cover 0 in this situation.
But the Jets don't have anybody past like year 3 on that defense. C.J.
You're right.
Mosley's opted out. Jamal Adams is gone. I don't even know who the oldest player on that defense is off the top of my head.
I'm not sure either.
So they have no leader out there. And that's the thing. You talked about Darius Butler. I mean, he would have been a guy who would have been like, no, we're not fucking running this right now. There's no way we're doing this at the end of the game. So, but the Jets don't have any of that leadership. And that just tells you all you need to know about the Jets.
Yeah, which we
we didn't even talk about the Jets, but we'll just skip them when we go to that division. But they're just an utter disaster. I mean, it's embarrassing. They're an embarrassment of a team. That's why I think it's embarrassing for the Raiders that they were even that close with them.
But here they are sitting at 7-5.
They remind me. They kind of have wins like the Browns do, where they're very close. They have a good win against the Chiefs. They actually beat the Saints early this year before the Saints kind of figured out who they were and that they were actually trying to play football this year. And the Saints have won 9 straight games. But the Raiders, ain't nobody scared of the Raiders.
Well, hell no. And you kind of just nailed it when you said, I don't even remember what the hell you said about there a lot of close games, but they're the only other team in the NFL with the Cleveland Browns that have a winning record, but a minus point differential.
Well, there you go.
They're minus 24 in net points, but sitting at 7-5. So
yeah. They had a similar situation last year. I believe
they went on a losing streak down the stretch.
Yes. Yeah, they did. And honestly, the ironic thing is that last year they lost to the Jets and went on that losing streak. This year they beat them. So maybe it's a little, I don't know. But
there's someone I think somebody would be pulling for in the playoffs to play.
Absolutely.
Like, let me get the Raiders.
To get the Raiders.
Yes.
Because no one is scared of that team. So
Denver last night put up a hell of a fight against Kansas City. I mean, I saw that Kansas City had, I think, 4 different opportunities within Denver's 5-yard line and didn't put a touchdown. I think, or maybe they got one touchdown. Yeah. They weren't able to capitalize like you'd think they were, especially against the Denver Broncos team that is 4-8 right now, and just aren't they? Don't they have the most salary cap tied up in injuries?
They are absolutely just devastated with injuries, and that's why we were texting about this last night about Drew Lock, because I'm a huge Drew Lock fan, and you asked if I was still on him, and I said yes, because this year is just kind of weird. Anyways, I mean, you saw last week. They weren't allowed a quarterback to play because Drew Lock got suspended because he wasn't wearing a mask around the facility. Driscoll got COVID, so all the other quarterbacks had to opt out. The Broncos have been completely wiped out with injuries. So I just think this year is very weird for the Broncos, because I was actually Cortland Sutton's the guy who got injured on offense. Their offensive line, a few of them opted out. So I still am a believer in Drew Lock. I told you I think he needs to get a better quarterback coach, because the kid is so talented, but he just tries all of these off-balance throws and Mahomes-type level throws, and he's just not that. But I do think he has the potential to be a good quarterback, because I said he has the Josh Allen problem. And you saw that last night on the graphics if you watched him. He has the lowest percentage of his passes under behind the line of scrimmage, so he barely throws any screens. He doesn't throw any checkdowns. Dude's always trying to throw it 30 yards down the field. And that's a problem in the NFL, because you got to check down sometimes. I mean, you can't just always try and go for the deep ball. It's cool, and you look awesome doing it when you complete it, but then you also get yourself in a mess where you threw 2 picks last night trying to do it.
Yep. And I was a little high on the Broncos coming into the year, even with all their guys. Maybe they'd be somewhere around 6-6, 7-5, but maybe I was a little high on them. But I will give Locke the benefit of the doubt in this, where I believe he's had 6 different offensive play callers or coordinators in 6 straight years. Yeah. So that's never that's never beneficial on somebody trying to learn 6 new offenses 6 straight years.
Yeah, that's tough.
Chargers, you mentioned it in a text earlier to one of our buddies. Anthony Lynn might be the worst head coach in the NFL.
Outside of Adam Gase. Yeah.
Justin Herbert has looked fantastic.
My guy, Jay Herb.
at some points. Other times he's definitely looked like a rookie, but I will tell you, up to this point in his rookie year, he has surprised me with how good and how he was just able to come in and
from day
honestly
one.
look even a little better in the NFL than he did in college.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. And we were just talking about this earlier this morning where no rookie quarterbacks go beat Bill Belichick. I don't care if it's in New England. I don't care if it's at your own home stadium. Rookie quarterbacks do not succeed against Belichick. He confuses the shit out of them. He blitzes them where you don't know where it's coming. So and you saw that yesterday with Herbert. But I was on it from day one. I told you that I thought he was going to be a superstar along with Joe Burrow, and I'm not ready to say that's official yet. But
exactly, because I mean, last year Drew Lock, when he got his first couple starts, looked really fucking good too, and now look at him. So I want to pump the brakes a little bit, but pleasantly surprised up to this point.
And I'm not, like I said, I didn't say he's already a superstar because you're not a superstar when you're a rookie quarterback. I mean, it just not happen. It just doesn't happen that easily.
Unless you're Patrick Mahomes, which technically it was his second year, but his
I mean,
first
he's
year
also
of play
had 3
time,
straight years of this success now. So you can call him a superstar now. You have to have longevity for the success to be considered a star. Like you see it with Lamar Jackson. I mean, last year everyone was already ready to anoint him the best quarterback in the league. Look what's happening this year. So, case in point. But the Chargers need a new coach. That's just plain and simple. They have a lot of talent on that roster, a lot of potential with a good young quarterback. Get him the right coach.
Yep, get him some offensive line help. He has the weapons, and then Derwin James needs to be healthy too.
Yeah. They get a new training staff too.
Yeah. AFC East, Buffalo Bills sit at the top at 8-3. What are your immediate thoughts on the Bills? I don't think they're scaring too many people.
I think they can, but again, they also can have a game where they look like complete shit because their defense isn't as good as it was last year, but their offense is much better than it was last year. That because it was basically kind of roles reversed from last year to this year. Their defense carried them a lot, but this year their offense has had to do the same thing. I know their defense has been playing better of late, so we'll see how they go down the stretch. But I think the Bills can put up points against anybody. I mean, you saw them do it against Seattle when nobody expected them to beat. I know it was in Buffalo, but no one expected them to just kind of whoop on the Seahawks like they did. So we'll see. I think they play Pittsburgh next week. We'll see. That's a tough matchup for them. So, I think that's going to be a true test for who the Bills actually are. So we'll see. But I like what I've seen from the Bills so far. And this is the maturation process you like to see from another quarterback I was a big fan of in Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm not as sold as they can put up points as easily as you were saying it. And their defense is just not what it was even last year.
I'd say it's just average this year.
Yeah, so I don't think the Bills are a scary team. The Dolphins probably win that division, honestly.
They might.
I don't really have
don't they?
a whole lot to say other than Josh Allen doesn't really scare me come playoff time. Their run game isn't as good as I thought it should be, and their defense is average. So they're a good team, but again, I believe the Buffalo Bills, if come playoff time, would be a team that somebody's pulling to play.
Yeah, they might.
Not scared to play.
But they're also another young team that hasn't been there, done that before. So I think
another reason why I wouldn't be scared to play.
Exactly. I think that's kind of why you look forward to playing those teams.
Dolphins, 8-4, very surprising. This is actually the guy I would give head coach of the year to if I had a vote in Brian Flores.
Tremendous job.
With what he's done in Miami, because you can look at what Kevin Stefanski's doing in Cleveland or even what Joe Judge is doing with the Giants, honestly. But the Dolphins' talent is not comparable to Cleveland, and yet they're one game back of Cleveland's record. Their point differential is awesome. They've started 2 different quarterbacks. They've had a veteran and a rookie. And even though I believe upper management is who made Brian Flores start Tua over Fitzpatrick when Fitzpatrick was rolling, he still was able to roll with it, and Tua was 4-1 as a starter. So I love what Brian Flores is doing. I think if you're a Dolphins fan, you should be extremely excited about your future because of all the draft picks you still have, the salary cap you are able to use on free agents. And Miami is a destination that free agents would like to go to. And what they've done this year is just phenomenal. Flores has the defense playing lights out with a lot of guys that are were looked at as just average by other teams, and their special teams, they're built and play just like the
It's
Patriots.
New England-esque. Absolutely,
Yes.
it is.
I
Brian
think Flores is
Flores
the first one that's gone to another team and
it's working.
been able to replicate that same success with that same scheme.
Yeah. I think you saw it last year. I mean, the Dolphins were not a good team last year because they had the 5th overall pick, so clearly they weren't a good team. But they were the least penalized team in the league. That is a very Patriot thing. And Flores obviously comes from that Patriot Bill Belichick mindset where, yeah, I mean, you're going to be buttoned up. You're not going to beat yourself. We're going to play great defense. We're going to have good special teams. And our offense doesn't have to carry us every single week. And, yeah, I like to poke fun at our buddy Levi because he's a Dolphins fan. But, again, I'll say the same thing about Tua as I said from the draft. I think he can be an average NFL starter, but I never, ever, ever saw superstar like everybody did. And everybody is claiming that he was a superstar. I never saw that. He always had the best talented team around him in Alabama. So, and I still don't see it. And I think the other 2 quarterbacks, they're the rookie in this class, Burrow and Herbert, I'm taking them over them any day over Tua. But I'm not going to say that Tua sucks or anything. I never said that before. But, I mean, you could also say that his team is much better than the other 2 rookie quarterbacks.
Or New England. Quick thoughts. I texted this to you not too long ago. I believe what Belichick has done to have his team at 6-6 and just put that ass whooping on the Chargers.
Yeah.
I think 6-6 with this New England roster, brand new quarterback that's never played in this type of offense. Your best defenders opting out before the season.
Yeah, he had like 8 players on defense opt out.
To me, this coaching job at 6-6 is way more impressive than what Brady's doing in Tampa Bay. But like I said, we will get there. But I'm actually
agree.
Impressed with what the Patriots are doing. I know when they signed Cam, I was like, they're going to the Super Bowl. A little bit of that was just me being facetious and it being funny as like a joke. But I mean, with this roster, I don't think maybe they win 1 or 2 more games with Tom Brady, and that's only because he had mastered that system and they would have been on a way better page than a brand new quarterback who came in a week before the season started.
I had that same conversation with my brother-in-law. He was very impressed with Brady and Tampa and everything. And I'm like, look, if Tom was in New England, I mean, I think he saw the writing on the wall a little bit. And Belichick touched on it where he said, we went all out for the last 5 years and we won 3 Super Bowls and made it to another and played in an AFC Championship game. So out of those 5 years, they were at least a game away from getting to the Super Bowl, winning Super Bowl, and then they won 3. So they spent a lot of money in free agents. They did a lot of stuff that they don't typically do to build around Tom because Tom went and cried to Robert Kraft because Belichick was going to play Jimmy Garoppolo over him. So Tom was like, okay, this roster fucking sucks. I'm part of the reason, but I don't want anybody to know that. So Bill's like, well, all right, I'm still going to do what I do, and we're going to win 6 games with maybe one of the worst rosters in the league.
Well, they have a chance to go, 9-7.
And miss the playoffs.
8-8, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a scenario where they get in.
There is.
And it's actually not as unrealistic as people might think.
No, they can get there. But I've again, we harped on Belichick forever. I mean, I still give him 75% of the credit for that run.
Maybe more.
Jets, I don't have anything to say about the Jets.
They fucking suck. They're 0-12
on the Jets. They just need to draft Trevor Lawrence and trade Sam Darnold. All I'm saying.
All right. So we just made it through the entire AFC.
Yep.
We'll just follow the same route. NFC South, New Orleans Saints at 10-2. I was on the Seahawks early saying they were. I think we had the same exact Super Bowl.
We did.
Chiefs versus
Seahawks.
Seahawks, yes. After what I've been seeing lately from Seattle, I believe they're going to make some noise in the playoffs because I believe in Russell Wilson so much. But the Saints are the best team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I know Taysom Hill's been playing. Now's Taysom Hill's winning games, so leave him in. Honestly, let Breeze rest until the last week.
Breeze was on track to play next week, actually.
Don't play him. Wait
maybe
until
the week after.
Wait until the second to last week or the last week of the season to let him get back in, knock some rust off, and be healthy and refreshed going in the playoffs. And if that's the case, the Saints, they got a legit chance at winning the whole thing.
Yeah. They have for the past 3 years, and they just got to do it in the playoffs. They have to, but I definitely think they can. They're definitely. I mean, their defense since week 3 when I think because they started off 1-2 and then they've won 9 straight games. After that, their defense has been like lights out. Their offense is playing better. I think it honestly kind of helped them for Michael Thomas's injury because they looked around and said, okay, we do actually have other guys to throw the ball to except for Michael Thomas. So I actually think that helped them because you involved Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook and Alvin Kamara more. So I just really like the Saints top to bottom.
And I actually think I was kind of alluding to it earlier. Drew Brees' injury might be a blessing in disguise.
It could be.
Ribs aren't going to affect his throwing motion once he comes back. It's not really something that's going to be lingering in his mind. Like, is this going to happen again? I think it was a freak thing, and it's going to allow Brees to kind of be rested up come playoff time. Whereas in years, the last like 2 or 3 years, we've seen it to where they're this great regular season team, but by the end of the season, you see him just winding
Fatigued
down. Yes, and then he doesn't look the same in the playoffs. Maybe this year's different where he's had that rest going into the playoffs and he looks refreshed and comes out on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I really
Tampa
like
Bay
the Saints
sitting
too.
at 7-5. Go off on them.
I mean, I can't say anything else that I haven't really said from like week 2, or 4 or 7 or whatever the last
Pat
time we
ourselves
even
on the
talked.
back real fast.
I mean, we pulled this from you and I were on this from the jump. I mean, neither of us believed what they actually could do. It was just a pipe dream because it looks good on paper, but you weren't getting the Tom Brady from being 35 years old anymore. And their offensive line had some issues. The fit with what Brady liked to do and what Arians' offense was built on for 20 years in the NFL of pushing the ball down the field, Brady just never did that ever. And you see it with a team that can actually put some pressure on him when they're not playing the Raiders or the Chargers and Brady puts up the gaudy numbers that he did, and then everybody was saying the Buccaneers were the best team in the league. Brady's the MVP. He's back, yada, yada, yada. The next 4, they lose 2 straight games, 3 out of the last 4, barely beat the Giants on Monday Night Football. And Tom's a lot of those reasons because, I mean, he's turned the ball over a ton more than he has in years, and it doesn't seem like Bruce Arians is really enjoying the Tom Brady ride that he's getting in Tampa Bay because he's called him out publicly many times. I sent you something the other day where it said that they call the plays that Tom wants. So it's all on Tom. He's getting all the blame for all this, he should.
Because
he gets all the glory when they win. So he needs all of this when they lose.
If you don't believe Tom Brady's pulling the strings, you're fooling yourself.
Absolutely.
Look at the facts. Before the season started and Antonio Brown was being talked about as an option, Bruce Arians shut that shit down from the beginning. He said, we will not sign Antonio Brown. Don't want him on the team. He saw what he did in Pittsburgh when he was there.
He hated him in Pittsburgh.
And what happens? A little bit of the season goes by. Tom Brady gets what he wants. Antonio Brown's on the team. Do you think after publicly saying we're not signing Antonio Brown, Bruce Arians wants to be able to look at the public and say we're signing Antonio Brown?
Yeah.
Not happening. They're calling the plays Tom Brady wants. This team just isn't built for Tom Brady. He's declining. I hope to God everybody can see it.
I think Tom's trying to prove that he can push the ball down the field, and it's really backfiring on him.
I agree.
Because you see it in the games where he's just missing everybody. And then when they played the Chiefs, Tony Romo blamed my grandpa and just found
everyone
found anything to blame. Yep. I'm like, dude, come on. I mean, he threw it out of bounds 10 yards over Mike Evans' head, and he blamed Mike Evans. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yes, I don't know. I was glad that actually did get some publicity come around the following Monday. That people were they realized that Romo was just taking all the blame away from Brady. But all in all, I realize they're sitting at 7-5, but I believe the last 6 or 7 games is way more who they are.
Absolutely.
And how they jumped out of the gate.
Yeah,
and I believe it's only going to go downhill from here because, one, the season's going on, and Brady is 42 or 43 years old.
I mean, they're 1-4 on primetime games, and they play good teams on primetime. So when they play the shitty teams, they win.
Their defense hasn't been as good as of late. Tom Brady's offensive line still isn't very good. It's just that the system does not work for him, and the turmoil which is coming out of the locker room, that never happened in New England. That never happens when teams are playing winning football. No. So it's all bad signs for Tampa Bay. I am we were never on the Bucks, but completely off of them, and glad we stuck to our guns
Yeah.
even after they had a couple blowout wins against some bad fucking teams.
Yeah, for sure.
Falcons, fuck the Falcons. Don't know what's going on with them. They piss me off so much.
Do they realize that the season actually starts in week 1 and not week 7?
I don't think they do. I actually believe they're playing harder and better
And they
under
are.
their
But that's
interim
the point.
coach.
Like,
but
why did it take them 7 weeks? I mean,
exactly. Why last year did it take until they're threatening to
9.
fire their head
Yeah.
coach for them to actually play well? I
Yeah.
don't know. They have so much talent
Yeah.
offensively. It's insane.
They're just broken. They're like a broken organization. They just need to let go of all their good players and just rebuild. They really do. It's time. It's that time. They're not salvaging what they have left in Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. They're just not. I'm sorry.
And the team
Panthers?
right underneath them is the Panthers with the same record at 4-8. They've lost. They're 1-4 in their last 5.
Yeah. I think that actually really shows what. I mean, they're just young. They're a young team. They got a new coach.
Young.
They've got a quarterback who's in a new system. Their best player on offense has been hurt basically all year. I think he's only played in like 3 games, which sucks for my fantasy team.
Arguably the best defender in the league right before the season.
They're just a rebuilding team, and that's fine. I mean, they play competitive in some games, and other games they don't. But I think that's going to happen with a really young team and a new.
I have
coach.
optimism for the Panthers.
I do too.
I believe within 2 years they'll be the second best team in the division, possibly the first.
They might be the best because
that's what I was saying. Possibly the first if the
you got
Saints,
You got 3 old quarterbacks in that division, so you just kind of have to wait them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where do we go? NFC South. So NFC North, the Packers sitting at 9-3. They're 4-1 in their last 5. They've looked okay at times. They about let Jalen Hurts come back on them yesterday. Again, they
still won by 14 points.
I was off the Packers, and then I gave in and was like, maybe they're better than I think. And then immediately after that, I regretted it because they still, to me, seem like the same team I saw last year where they're good against bad teams. They are good when the opposing team doesn't have good trench play. But when a team is physical up front on both sides of the ball, they just knock them around, and I don't think they're able to beat those teams come playoff time. Aaron Rodgers having a fantastic year. Devontae Adams very well could be the best receiver in the NFL. He is a freak. I've underestimated him for too long. The dude might – I know Michael Thomas probably has the best hands in the NFL, but he's right there. The dude catches everything.
His route running is so savvy.
Phenomenal.
And him and Rodgers, their connection is just on an absolutely another level. I'm higher on the Packers than you are. I think the Packers can play with anybody. I really do because I mean – what are their losses this year? They got destroyed by Tampa. They lost a close game to the Colts. I can't think of who their third loss was to, or it was Minnesota, I believe it was, when Minnesota just came in and kind of caught the Packers off guard. But I mean, offensively, I think the Packers are going to be able to put up points against anybody. It's just going to be if their defense can stop them.
See, I don't know if that's true. I believe if they go up against someone like the Rams, they're going to get fucking smoked. They're going to take Jalen Ramsey, shadow Devontae Adams, and completely make them one-dimensional. I don't know.
But then if you get the Rams, then you got to worry if Jared Goff's going to turn the ball over 4 times.
Yeah, but the Packers don't have a great pass rush.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm higher on the Packers than you are. I think the Packers can do something in the playoffs.
I think they're a good team, but
Any other team in that division cannot. I know Minnesota's won like 4 out of their last 5 or 5 out of their last 6.
Yeah, they're 4-1
or
in the
something
last 5.
like that. And they've played better as of late, but they lost to the Cowboys, who that was just embarrassing. They barely beat the 1-10 Jaguars, and I think they beat Minnesota and Chicago. I don't think any of their wins are very impressive. And the only thing that's really good for the Vikings is Justin Jefferson is an absolute star in the making.
Yep, and there were quite a few receivers that went before him.
Yeah. I think Philly's probably shooting themselves in the foot. I think Jalen Reagor's a good player, but he was not better than Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I don't even know if the Vikings make the playoffs.
I think they just got sprung into the 7th seed with the Cardinals losing just based off strength of schedule or whatever it is. But I don't know if they make it in there either.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see the 49ers play the Bills. Because I think there's a chance that the 49ers can still make the playoffs.
Yeah, they can. I mean, I think they can get some of their guys back from Kittle and Garoppolo and Mostert. I mean, they're a team with just so many injuries. We'll talk about them when we get there. But
yeah, I don't really have much to say on the last 3 teams in the NFC North. The Vikings have definitely played better as of late, but I don't think they're going to do enough to get into the playoffs. They started way too slow,
Yeah.
and Kirk Cousins is what Kirk Cousins is.
I agree.
He's not taking that team
I just
anywhere.
want to say this one thing about the Lions, Jay. We should have sent in that clip of me as when we did our mock draft, saying they should have traded away Matthew Stafford when they could, drafting Justin Herbert with a third pick and rebuilding, because what they had was never going to be able to compete with a team that they thought they did. Matt Stafford needs to go. He needs a change of scenery. He's too good of a quarterback to be stuck in Detroit. They should have tried to rebuild, because I think Jeff Okudah is a good player, but drafting a corner at third overall when he's not, an absolute game changer, because that's a position that's not sure that you can really win a bunch of games if your best player on your team's a corner. You know what I mean? But they should have listened to me. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, and that looks like a pretty good idea at this point. And then
that's what I would have done if I was their GM at the time. I told you that.
They finally fired Matt Patricia. Players were coming out all over the board, just ripping the dude.
Oh, yeah.
So it seemed like it was a long time overcoming. Matt Patricia just thought he was way more powerful than he was. Hopefully they hire the right guy next year. They got to be kicking themselves in the foot for firing Jim Caldwell, who went, I think, back-to-back 9 and 7 seasons,
and
they
playoff appearance, and then they fired him
with less talent.
Yeah, stupid.
Chicago, not much to say there either. Their offense is putrid. They're a fucking dumpster fire. I'm not a Matt Nagy fan. I don't think he's a good head coach. I haven't really been on his train. Nope. They paid Nick Foles all this money in the offseason. Then they're like, Trubisky's our guy. Halfway through, they're like, nope, Trubisky's not our guy.
They're
Foles,
3-1 at the time, and then start Foles.
Yep, Foles, you're the guy. We're all behind you, and they're already back to Trubisky.
Well, I think it's because Foles is hurt, but still, I get your point.
I don't care. I think that it's embarrassing because they actually have a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
Right. Waste of talent on the defensive side.
Let's move on to the NFC East, because that division, there's not a lot to say about a lot of these teams.
You're right. They're all bad, really.
They're all very bad, and it's an embarrassment. I just want to start with the Eagles because of the whole Carson Wentz situation.
All right, you're skipping around on them even though they're third in the division, but go ahead.
I just wanted to start with them because I think they're one of the more intriguing teams in that division right now, just because of the whole situation. I was thinking about it. I've never seen a quarterback like Wentz, with the talent that he has and the success that he had early in his career, just fall off like this and be so bad. I can't remember a quarterback that's done it like in this fourth or fifth year, whatever he's in. I mean, can you think of one other scenario where a quarterback has had that much? I mean, it's not like he was the most successful quarterback in the league, but you get what I mean. I mean, he had made up a couple Pro Bowls. They had been in the playoffs.
The only one similar that comes to mind is like RG3.
But his was only 1 year. Carson's was 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I just never have seen it. I literally, and I think a lot of people have talked about it. Orlovsky talked about it this morning on ESPN. I think he's physically, like, just mentally, not physically broken, mentally broken. I think he needs out.
You could argue physically, too.
Yeah, that's true, too. But I think he just absolutely needs out of Philly, and he needs a change of scenery, because I still think he can be a good quarterback in the NFL. He just needs a different spot. I think he needs a different home.
I agree with that. And it was actually fun to watch Jalen Hurts last night.
Yeah.
It looked like he gave the team the spark they needed. They just came up short. They got themselves way too deep, way too early in a hole against Dallas or against Green Bay and couldn't come back.
Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about the Eagles. I mean, let's move on to the next team.
Since we're going all out of whack, the last team in the division is the Cowboys. Everybody either love the Cowboys or hate them. Not much to say. Dak went out. Clearly, I think Dak meant a little more to the team than I believed he did. I still don't think he's that much better than an average quarterback in the NFL, but he usually has the Cowboys 8-8, 9-7, 10-6, somewhere around there.
At least keep them in games. I mean, they've just offensively, at least they score a lot of points if they still lose. But against some of these teams, they haven't been able to score anything offensively, even with all the extra talent that they have.
You were right about the head coach, McCarthy, from the beginning. He is not a good head coach. He does not know what's going on.
He was never a good head coach there.
He has no idea how to call a game, what to do in order to win. This whole season is a disaster for the Cowboys. And I love that every year people pick the Cowboys to go to the Super Bowl. This was another – they got CeeDee Lamb. They're going to the promised land. But Again, not very good. Clearly not. They're 3-8. They're last in the NFC
And
East, which
CeeDee
is the
Lamb
worst in the
a
division.
good player. I think he will be a very good receiver, but they did not address some of their biggest needs in the first round. And I like I said, hindsight's 2020. You probably don't pass up on CeeDee Lamb when he's there, but they could have taken an edge rusher. They could have taken a safety. So they're just, yeah, they just hope for the next year because they've been a disaster. Their offensive line is not good anymore. Zeke does not look like the same player he was even last year. So, I mean, and he's making a lot of money.
Yes, he is.
For not being very good right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, he has not earned that contract in the second. Once he got that contract, he has not been worth it.
No.
The Washington football team, who right now is trailing the Steelers by 7 points
I think they have the ball.
Monday evening football. They do have the ball. If you're wanting to know where we're at in the game, there's 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they're down 7 with the ball.
At the 44-yard line right now.
I don't know how the game's going to turn out, but that right there, I like where the Washington football team's going. They still have some clear pieces that they're missing, specifically quarterback.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not a Dwayne Haskins believer. He's probably gone. They're going with Alex Smith, who has been a good quarterback up to this point in his career, but dude had a leg injury that almost cost him his whole leg, possibly more.
It's just more impressive that he's back playing an NFL game than anything.
But they're in every game. I've alluded to the point differential a few times. They're 4-7, but their net point differential is -2. So they've scored 241 points on the year. They've allowed 243. Their front seven is tremendous when everybody's healthy. Mm-hmm. Ron Rivera's got the defense playing better than people expected. And it's just they have a few bright spots on offense. Not completely sold on Antonio Gibson. Not sold at their quarterback position. And not sold on their offensive line just yet. They have some drafting to do on the offensive side of the ball this year. But I like how hard they play. They always seem prepared. And they seem to like Ron Rivera, which – I'm going to say a lot of the same things for the Giants here in a second, but I like where Washington and the Giants are headed.
Yeah, I'll just mirror that off of what you said for Washington. I think they have the coach in place. They need the quarterback, offensive line, and really, because some of their skill guys are decent, but, you can find those guys in third, fourth round every single year. You find a gem. They got Terry McLaurin in the third round, and he's one of the better young wide receivers in today's game. The Giants, what have they won 4 straight? I think.
Yeah, they're on a 4-game win streak. Yeah. They're 4-1 in the last 5.
Just probably had the biggest upset of the year at Seattle to beat the 8-3 Seahawks. Their defense has been amazing in the past 4 games. They've just been really, really good. Joe Judge is another disciple of Belichick who seems to have got them playing disciplined football, and they're not beating themselves because that's a huge part of football. You see. I brought it up with the Chargers, but it's like anti the Chargers because the Chargers always beat themselves and they have so much talent. The Giants aren't as talented, but don't beat themselves.
No, and they get Saquon back next year.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has impressed me. I've said it a couple times that he is better than I thought he would be coming out of college, and actually by quite a bit. I've seen him burn corners down the sideline, so his speed, I didn't know he was that fast. I've seen him make throws that I believe only – I don't know. I think to me he has a top 15 arm in the game.
He's really talented, and
he is
very athletic.
And with the receivers he has, Evan Ingram is a wide receiver playing tight end, but sure. He's playing with a bunch of number 2s. He does not have just some stud wide receiver. Darius Slayton is a good number 2 wide receiver, but no one knew who he really was before this year.
A 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I don't know what draft position he was, but I remember at the beginning of the year after one of the podcasts, I was like, dude, their defensive line is better than people believe. And you corrected me and said, well, their interior defensive line.
Yes.
And I was like, I'll give you that. But their defensive front 7 is just flat out better than I believed. They're good up front. I was a big Dexter Lawrence guy coming out of Clemson. He's played admirably. Finally, you see the guy that came out of USC at defensive tackle, Leonard Williams, playing to what you believed he should have been when he got drafted by the Jets. And this team just plays hard. They play smart, a Patriot way, now the Dolphin way. They're just, like you said, they're not going to beat themselves. And they're a few key pieces away from what I believe is repeatedly winning this division.
Yeah. I mean, they may be on track to it. I mean, they've kind of been a laughingstock in New York for a while, but at least they aren't the Jets.
And I heard Mark Schler today on Colin say that he's called a couple Giants games, and take it for what it's worth, but he played in the NFL. He understands schemes. He said, every time I break down the Giants, they are the most, how do you say it? They have the most disguises, and they're the most complex on the back end of any team he's watched this year. Meaning they're so diverse in what they do on the back end and their secondary that they're constantly confusing quarterbacks.
That's interesting.
So, hats off to Joe Judge, because I think even though they're 5-7, after losing arguably the best offensive player in the game, not playing the quarterback position in Saquon at the beginning of the year, and the talent that this team had from last year and what the expectations were, even sitting at 5-7 is pretty damn good in my eyes, and he should be considered for Coach of the Year.
I agree. All right, let's finish with what may be the best division in all of football.
I don't even think it's a question.
I know, I don't either. So we'll go off of the trend you were doing, Jay, in Seattle. We'll start up at the top. Now,
actually, the Rams are in first place in that division. I
guess
believe
that's true because it's the loss of Seattle and the win yesterday. Okay, so we'll start with the Rams. I'll say I was wrong about the Rams. I thought the Rams were going to be a disaster this year. I didn't think they were going to be very good. I thought they were soft. Their defense is actually playing really well, and they found a three-back system with Henderson and Akers, and I can't think of the third guy's name.
Malcolm Brown.
Malcolm Brown. So there you go. And, I mean, Cooper Kupp, maybe one of the most underrated receivers in the league. You still got Robert Woods, another
who
very
also might be
another
underrated
receiver in the league. I think Sean McVay is actually – I think he went back and looked himself in the mirror and said, I gotta diversify my playbook a little bit, and I think he's done that where he doesn't just run the same 4 plays that he did when everyone was calling him the boy genius, but it's worked because I do think he's a good coach and he's very smart, so he figured it out and he adjusted. And their defense, like I said, you got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, you're going to be okay, I think. So hats off to the Rams. They've impressed me this year with some of the wins that they've had.
Yeah, they're a lot better team than I thought, and I believe they have a game that translates into the postseason. Their defense is great. They got studs up front and on the back end. Jalen Ramsey's the best cornerback in football.
Yeah.
And Aaron Donald's the best D lineman in football. And a good pass rush helps the back end. A good back end helps the pass rush, and they both complement each other very well. And then on offense, they do have some duds on offense. Some games where
they've had some games this year, yeah.
But I just believe if they can get in a groove come playoff time, and they're not going to be a fun team to play.
Nope.
Especially if they get up early and they're allowed to just release their D-line.
Yeah, for sure.
Seahawks, lately, I fucking don't know what's happening with them.
Especially their offense. Their defense actually has played better, but it's their offense that's stalling recently.
I don't even know what they were doing against the Giants. Their run game was working, but they just went away from it.
Yeah.
I know up to this point, we keep saying, well, up until this point, before this season started, we were always hammering, let Russell Wilson just throw the ball around the yard and win you games. And I believe he can do that. But when your run game's working, don't go away from it. Chris Carson's a proven back in this league. You got Carlos Hyde, who is coming off one of his better years. So they can both produce. And I don't know what's been up with Russell Wilson, but lately he has not looked like the quarterback I know he is.
He's kind of struggling lately. I don't know if he was reading into all of the hype around him for the rest for MVP train, all the put respect on his name, blah, blah, blah. So I think he's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but maybe he was just reading too much into the hype of himself. I don't know. Possibly.
They got some work to do.
Yeah. But I still think they can do some damage in the playoffs, like you said earlier, because of Russell Wilson.
Exactly.
For sure.
Cardinals are sitting at third in the division at 6-6. They show glimpses at times, but again,
they're very inconsistent, and that, again, it's something that happens with a very young team. I mean, Kyler's
lost
still
3 in a row,
only in his second year in the league. I mean, their defense is putrid, really. I mean, they lost Chandler Jones, who was one of the better pass rushers in the league. Their first-round pick, Isaiah Simmons, has kind of been a project this year. So, I mean, I had a little higher hopes for the Cardinals, I'm not going to lie, because I thought they would finish second in this division. But the other two teams are just better, just flat out. And San Francisco may be better too. They just had been very riddled with injury.
I don't know what the Cardinals are just yet. They're still a few players away. They're, again, I've said it a couple times. They're a team that if they make the playoffs, I think teams in the NFC are pulling for, hoping they get them.
Yeah. I mean, shit, they would have lost 4 straight games had DeAndre Hopkins not
the Hail Mary.
caught that Hail Mary over 4 guys. So,
yeah, they're losing at the
issues,
wrong time. They started hot, and they're playing their worst ball down the stretch, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and I mean, 2 of their early losses were to Carolina and Detroit. I mean, those were just bad losses early in the year that you just can't have against teams that you're better than.
To wrap this podcast up, we end with the 49ers. They did not have their quarterback yet for a lot of the year, and when he's in there, he's clearly the best option they got. I'm not sold. I don't even think Kyle Shanahan sold.
I don't even think John Lynch is sold either, their own general manager. So,
but he clearly gives them the best chance to win.
Well, right now, for sure.
And their running backs have just been a rotation because all of them just keep getting hurt, and it's just like, which guy's healthy? Put him in. Which guy's healthy? We got to play him. And
same thing with receiver.
Debo's
too.
been hurt. Brandon Ayuk was out with COVID, so it's like they've just offensively they have not been able to play with their whole offense.
Sherman's been hurt a lot of the year, so Solomon Thomas been hurt as well. They've just absolutely riddled by injury. But I mean,
and if you remember after the offseason, though, one of the things I was saying was the reason that I don't fully understand what the 49ers are doing is the past couple of years they've built their team on a lot of guys hoping, well, let's hope he stays healthy.
Yeah.
They built their team around a lot of guys that have injury histories, and that doesn't bode well a lot of the time. So it's like every year they're making, well,
they did do that.
I don't know. So hopefully that's not the trend that keeps going forward. They can figure it out, and their guys can stay healthy.
Hey, I mean, if they win tomorrow or tonight, I mean, they're right back in it. I mean, they're still there. I mean, they still got a chance because if they get some of their guys back, I know they won't get Bosa back, but they can get Garoppolo back hopefully in a couple weeks. And, hey, I mean, they play hard because they're very well coached. So I wouldn't count out the 49ers just yet.
I wouldn't either.
So
that wraps it up, man. That's our thought. Hey, Washington tied the game. It's 17-17.
I saw that 17-17, and I mean it's on no channel except for if you live in Pittsburgh, I think.
Yeah. You want to know a side note?
Yes.
If Washington covers the 8.5 point spread I bet on, and Baltimore wins against Dallas, Seattle Seahawks cost me $1,300. I put a $63 bet down for a 10-team parlay.
That sucks,
and one of them was where I just picked Seattle to win outright.
Just win straight up.
Which they should have. And
yes, they should have.
Instead of winning $1,340-something, I lost 63 because Seattle fucking blew it.
Well, I apologize to you, Jay. I'm sorry about that. But
it's all right.
Usually you like to end on a high note, but you just kind of bummed yourself out. So we'll just leave it at that.
All right.
And
I'm just going to go cry.
We'll see you next week. Yeah.
Hey, you didn't tell them about subscribing or anything.
Jay, if you remember, we did that at the beginning.
I know we did in the beginning, but you usually say at the end too, man.
Yeah, well, I just did it at the beginning now, so.
All right. Until next time.
Until next time.